Ha! Hey, what's up, Bud? What's up, Rob and Mark? Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. It is 12:01 p.m. here on the West Coast in Sunnyvale. It's Amy Register live with Ask a Christian. And the question I chose today was from our friend Bud Askins, who was with us on some of the last series that Mark and I did. And so I thought it'd be fun to pick one of your questions, Bud, and I'll just read it out loud for somebody who might not be looking at their screen. It says, I have faithfully watched Real Time with Bill Maher for years, and he featured a segment tonight having to do with the Great Disappointment. Have you heard of the Great Disappointment? In the 1800s, we're going to talk about that. It dawned on me that you may have some thoughts on this failed prediction and whether or not it is a good idea to make them. Too long didn't watch version is a terrible idea. It's just, I always cringe. I'm like, oh, especially if, it's somebody who's doing it from a religious standpoint. I'm like, do you really want to risk losing every single one of your followers if you're wrong? It's, anyway, let's get into it today. Stay tuned if setting dates for the end of life on Earth is interesting to you. Get out now if it makes you angry, anxious, and if you're a troll. Your trolling is not welcome here, but you sure are. I'm Amy with Ask a Christian, excited to welcome new subscribers, new questioners, people who want to have authentic discussion. Your questions don't scare me, rather they amuse me a good portion of the time. And sometimes it's just fun to discuss stuff like this. So if you're the kind of person who likes authentic discussion surrounding the Christian worldview, you will like it here. Feel free to subscribe, youtube.com/askachristian, or follow us on Facebook, which is very similar, but it's facebook.com/askachristianfriend. And of course, if you have a discussion point that you want to chime in on, I'm all ears. And if you have a question you'd like to ask, email me at askachristianfriend@gmail.com. On to the topic of the end of the world. How many predictions of the world ending have you heard since you've been alive? I remember being in class and hearing of the Mayan calendar, the Katuns, and seeing that the Mayan calendar ran out at 2012 AD and thinking that was really cool as I grew up. And then, of course, there were doomsdayists and all kinds of things surrounding that. Come to find out, we may have misunderstood the Mayans, but there were a lot of people saying that the Mayans predicted the end of the world. And none of this is new. Every century, there have been enough people seriously predicting the end of the age that we have massive literary history. Just check it out on Wikipedia. There's a running list. And while the lion's share do come from various branches of Christianity, there are a surprising number of Jewish, Muslim, other religious leaders predicting the end of the world, a ton of cult leaders, astrologers, mystics, scientists, of course, and even a pyramid builder in the mix. It also seems like the French really love to predict the end of the world. I know it's very stereotypical, but I just see like mustache twirling French people. I get a little chuckle. Now, most recently, highly publicized end of the world predictor was, you can fill in the blank, you remember? Harold Camping. He started in the 1990s, and then after having a couple failed attempts, he was sure that Jesus was coming back on May 21, 2011, and that there would be a spiritual judgment taking place, including a physical rapture and the end of the world. So I think he may have switched it over to just that spiritual judgment. Anyway, the point is that lots of people have predicted the end of the world, and it seems like humanity loves to predict the end of the world. Why? Is there something interesting about being part of the last generation on Earth? Maybe so. It just feels weighty. It feels important. It boosts our ego. There might be something to that. I'd love to hear why you think people like to predict the end of the world. it gives you popularity. You might sell a few books. You might be able to profit off of it as well. So please don't overlook the fact that there may be financial gain in it for some people. So here are my reasons: popularity, making money. And I don't want to make it sound like it's all bad. You can influence people to act right if you believe like the world is just full of ethical and moral failings. Then saying that the world is going to end might help people to shape up a little bit. So it might come from good stuff. If you are into the bestseller circuits, you might know that Hal Lindsey wrote the best-selling book, The Late Great Planet Earth, in which he predicted that Jesus would come in 1988. How many of these books were sold? Oh my goodness, so many. Thousands of people got excited. But once again, we're still here. And then Edgar C. Whisenant sold 4.5 million copies of his book, 88 Reasons Why the Lord is Going to Come by 1988. I am not quite old enough to remember that. I could remember it, but I just wasn't into that stuff in 1988. Trinity Broadcasting Network interrupted their program to let people know how to prepare for the secret rapture. That's interesting. The next day, however, they went right back to regularly scheduled programming. Okay, you get the point. Christianity especially is obsessed with this. This is why I chose to take on Bud's commentary and his question. Is it a good idea for anyone to predict the end of the world? It's a mixed bag for me. If you really know something and think something is important, it seems ethically questionable to keep it to yourself. If you overshare your ideas, people stop paying attention. And if you're wrong or appear to be wrong, then you are never going to have people's attention again. They're just going to write you off. You can't recover from that. So from a scientific perspective, scientists who don't believe that Earth's physical resources can support humanity for much longer seem to get more airtime than religious folks who don't believe that the Earth's emotional and spiritual resources can support humanity for much longer. So both sets of people are crying out, the world doesn't seem to be able to last much longer. This is, an impetus for date setting and predicting the end of the world, at least in short-term predictions. Of course, there's long-term predictions like, 70 odd billion years will run out of stuff. But anyway, that's not exactly what we were talking about. For the most part, from my perspective, it seems like warning people about limited resources is good. It's biblical. Jesus talks about the signs of his return and the end of the age in Matthew 24. I think these are good things to talk about. I do think they call people back to, okay, let's do a little self-check. Let's see what kind of lives we're living. Are we living lives of love and activity, or have we grown lazy and self-sufficient? Good things to talk about. But I hope you're with me. I think you'll probably be with me. Yes, like Chicken Little, the sky is falling in. People just get tired of hearing that. If you're with me, you will realize that Christians probably need to cut it out. Even now, when it seems like the world is terrible enough that God could return any day, any month, it seems like a reckless thing to do. Matthew 24, 11 says, many false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many. And a little bit later, Jesus says, if any man shall say to you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. That's verse 23. So Christians need to cut it out. This seems like a direct word from Jesus saying, look, if someone says, Christ is coming here or there, by the way, in context, that would mean that the end of the age is upon us, according to Christianity. His return perpetuates the world getting made new, et cetera, et cetera. We can talk more about that later. But if anyone says, okay, Christ is coming here or there, let's go see him, don't believe it. Christians need to stop making end of time predictions, especially like the Bible is clear. We know not the day nor the hour. If somebody told me that they thought that there was a season or whatever, I might give it a listen. I want to give everything a listen. But that day prediction just seems real opposite. Summary for you on this point. It is great to remind people about the signs of the end, to talk about the Bible, to talk about the signs in Matthew 24, to keep track with what might be happening around us, but it does seem terrible to get obsessed with a day or an hour. Thousands of date setters have come and go throughout world's history, and they've gotten it wrong. Now, is that a reason to discard every single person who says they are seeing signs that Jesus is coming back? No. And I want to leave you with this. Just because he has not come back is not a logical argument for saying that he will not. So it's good to look into. It's good to research. It's good to know what Christianity and other religions, I would say, it's good to know what people say about this stuff. I'll leave that there for now. My final thought is that I don't want to do damage to anybody or their faith by getting a prediction wrong. And I don't want to be coerced. I don't want this thing dangling over me, like some vulgar carrot on a stick. We should be compelled to live well and act in love because of our interaction with God and his goodness, not because we're afraid it's going to end tomorrow. We got to get our house in order. That very well may be the case, but that is not motivating for somebody with even a hint of rebellious mind, like me. So, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. And that concludes our regularly scheduled program. Now I want to go on to a bit about Bill Maher and his kind of snarky commentary. I'm going to pause and look at your I want to look at your comments here. Hi, Furman. Hi, Human Meat Sack. Hello, Mark. I hear you. I see you. I hear you. I'm going to pop this up here. I'm pretty sure there is a nice political joke to be made here. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for chiming in. Just a little bit about Bill. The guy is always overtly, anti-Christian, but this one kind of hurt. I like his stuff. I really do. I think he's a very witty and amazing man. And so, yeah, it kind of sucks when I see just kind of mean stabs at Christianity. I'll put the link below for those of you who didn't see it, but there's a quote that he said in his broadcast that, pardon me, there's going to be a cuss word in here. It says, when you stake your whole religion on one all-important prophecy that doesn't come true, the logical reaction from followers should be, well, I guess that was a bunch of bullshit. Okay, I laughed. It's true at some face value, and then it's a poke at Christianity in another way. But he just wanted to grab laughs at the expense of Christians. Okay, so I'll tell you the history of 1844 here in a second. I just want to say no branch of authentic Christianity is dependent on date setting. There's been date setters from a ton of different denominations and backgrounds. And if their religion rises or falls based on one thing, it's probably not true Christianity. It's numerology with Christ tucked in somewhere, So Anyway, we can judge people by their fruits, not by whether or not someone amongst them decides to set a date. But people do get overly obsessed with dates. And I also want to say to my friend Bill that if you extend the same line of reasoning that he applied to Christianity to like any number of other experiments, it would seem really illogical. If we said, well, the first time we tried it, it didn't work out. I guess we should abandon ship. We wouldn't have instant coffee. I don't think we'd have Post-it notes. We wouldn't know anything about the Higgs boson particle or the Higgs field. So all of that to say, when you don't get something right the first time, you don't just say, well, I guess that was a bunch of bull and never touch it again. So again, this is just me on the soapbox. That's why I said, stick around if you want to. But here's the church history. Here's a little bit of U.S. church history. In the 1800s, there was a movement led by a preacher named William Miller. He had followers who called themselves after his name, of course, Millerites. And they were from all different belief systems. This is something a lot of people don't know. But, you've got your Presbyterians, you've got your Methodists, you got your whatever's going on in the U.S. And many of them start to be introduced to the concepts of William Miller. And he is talking about, instead of Jesus coming back much later after, this long period, William Miller believes that the Bible teaches that Jesus is coming back sooner. And he and his friends start to read these prophecies in Daniel, chapters 8 and 9, that seem to be talking about the second coming of Jesus to earth. I'll let you read those on your own. But in Daniel chapter 8, verse 14, there is a phrase that stuck out to Miller and his friends that says, unto 2,300 days, and the sanctuary shall be cleansed. So Miller starts thinking to himself, 2,300 days. Okay, if I am applying a prophetic idea that every day is an actual year, every prophetic day is an actual year, then I'm counting 2,300 days. And he found a place in the Bible that said when to start counting. And he counted 2,300 years into the future and ended up in 1844. That's the math. Bill Maher says he found out that by applying his own math, and everybody in the studio audience laughs. He applied his own math. It was addition. Everyone can do that. The tricky part is figuring out when this prophecy was supposed to start. So the interesting thing about it is the Bible does give this start date. I'm not going to get into it now. If you're interested, send me a message. I would love to look at it with you. But he has a good plan. He has interpreted prophecy according to the known standards at the time, and he's come up with 1844. So he starts telling people, and everybody, math checks out. Oh my goodness, could this be? Makes sense to me. And thousands upon thousands of people, Methodists, Presbyterians, Catholics, Baptists, everyone from their own denominations is adding on another belief that they think Jesus is coming sooner rather than later. Anyway, I love this story. There's so many people who were just sold out to God, and it's sad. It's a tragic end, but it's very interesting. Anyway, all right. Millions of people believe Jesus was coming in 1844. A note of clarification from Maher. He says that this was a movement connected to the Adventist Church. Well, kind of. They were calling themselves the Advent movement. Advent means, as you probably know, the coming or the appearance of Christ, like the first Advent. And they were looking for the second Advent. So they started calling themselves the Advent movement. And then maybe 15 or 20 years after the Great Disappointment, the Seventh-day Adventist Church did. So it did kind of come out of this, but other movements came out of this as well. Long story short, the Advent the Advent movement was, of course, wrong about 1844 being God's physical return. So they started wondering if there was any possible way that that phrase in Daniel, cleansing the sanctuary, meant something else. They found a verse in Hebrews that talks about a heavenly sanctuary. What was Jesus doing there? How did the earthly sanctuary system reflect it? What did this sanctuary reveal about Jesus? Those are the kinds of things they were asking and studying. Okay, so that's about it for today. That's my little rant on Bill Maher, and I appreciate your time and attention today. Bud, thank you again for asking your question. And if you have a question, if you'd like to study more about today's topic or another topic in the Bible, you can email me. Once again, the email address is askachristianfriend@gmail.com, and I will select another question next week, and I'll meet you again here. I won't say same time, but definitely same place, same time, same place, kind of, on the internet. All right, until next time, I am wishing you joy and peace for your journey wherever it leads you. If you want to stick around for a moment and chat, I'll be here to answer any other questions, but that's it for now. See you later. Ooh, I'm going to pop these up. We might take this one another time. Human meat sack. Just for a brief answer to your question, what's the difference between Christianity and true Christianity, and how do you know the difference? From my understanding, one of the big ways to look and tell are the fruits of the Spirit. And those are listed a couple of places. I think Galatians. And I think it's also interesting, like, putting myself up as a judge of what's true Christianity or not. It seems easy later, but at the time, it's hard because judging things by their fruit does take time, maybe even a couple of generations. You could change your mind, a couple times on whether something represented true Christianity. But one place that the Bible talks about measuring God in us is Galatians 5:22 and 23, and talks about the fruit of the Holy Spirit. So if you have the Spirit of Christ, you will be and act these ways, right? So love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Those are listed. And then there's, I think, another couple places where we could get some, but that's pretty helpful. Let's see. I don't know the story of Jim Baker. In Heritage USA. So that's probably something to check out. Anyway, thank you so much for joining, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much. Bye for now.